Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I'm an axiological atheist, and we're starting the meeting. And so you were asking me what question?
Okay, so you said if someone is 99% sure,
Right.
then they're 100% sure.
Well, because of bell curve. In other words, like Einstein is a genius, correct or not? He's only a genius, though, if the bell curve is not 3,000. If the bell curve is 300 and he is 289, then that is where genius is. But if your genius level is at 10,000 or 3,000 or at 1,000, then him being at that amount is not genius. In other words, there has to be a place where you put truth value or non-truth value, as far as I feel. So that's how I assess that either something is true or untrue, and the reason it's deemed true is because it has truth-worthiness. It has qualities that resemble what would make something true.
Well, probabilities usually apply to predictions, not to things. So, 9 plus 1 is 10 is 100% true. There's no room for doubt there. I mean, if you mean what I mean by 9, 1, and 10, then 9 plus 1 is 10.
Right, but see, the belief in general that 9 plus something 1 equals 10 is a mathematical principle that you have rationalized is true. You've accepted a priori knowledge of mathematics. And even if you say that mathematics resembles reality, in other words, observable things can be seen in quantitative amounts, that equals mathematical numbers, you're still assuming a priori that reality of your observable ability is true. So everything has to come back to actually rationalism or some ability of logic and reason to accept that basically what we see is true, what we touch, feel, observe is true. Mathematics, I totally agree with, but it starts with a belief a priori of the natural world is true, validating mathematics.
By default, it has to be that way.
I agree.
So what you
That's what I'm saying.
Is that it has to be based on your observation.
Right, yeah.
All truth is based on some level of observation, how much you trust that.
Well, unless it's a priori. I mean, so Kant talks about these a priori things like math, I mean, because I'm very leery of your 99% equals 1 approach, because that discounts the 1. If something is an accurate, if a prediction is stated accurately 100 times, you'll get the 1 outlier. I mean, it didn't not happen.
Right, but you're not saying there's no outlier for God. There's no 1%. So I agree with you, but there is no 1%. There is nothing to doubt. There's nothing to build doubt upon.
It depends on what you define God as, though.
Well, to me, you can't define God, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, no, but that's...
The word G-O-D has no intrinsic assessed value to it, for me.
Hence why there's, there's what, 10,000, just to throw an arbitrary number out there, number of definitional paradigms that people accrue the term God to.
Right, a lot of people lie.
Well,
and make stuff up. Well, there's not any form of God.
But even then, even if it's made up, it's still an application of a term to a particular definition. Now, whether or not that definition actually points to anything in reality besides somebody's cognitive state, well, that's a totally different question.
Right, but I try for me at least. I'm a rationalist first, so I always a priori start in reality. That's the most. If science has proven anything, it's that reality is real. To the extent that we can observe and quantify and we can measure and we can repeat things. Well, you can repeat things. Yeah, but I'm saying in general, though, the reality is, if there is anything that has been proven by science, is that they can repeatedly test things, prove that it will happen again. They can make predictions. That reality basically follows the things that they do. So either you don't believe in science at all, which there's some people that are, total, skeptics. I'm not a skeptic. I don't doubt reality. I use that as a method to then put everything else against. So like if you said,
That's an arbitrary usage of the term skepticism.
Well, no, there's actually philosophical skepticism and there's methodological skepticism.
Yeah.
I am a rationalist that uses methodological skepticism, and methodological skepticism does not doubt reality, actually wants to find truth from falsehood. So if you take away the ability of saying there's nothing known, then there's nothing true. Then there is no methodological skepticism to find truth from it. You either have to accept that there's truth and false, like logic. Logic says that the rules of logic that there's either true or false. There is no scooted middle. There's no in between position. You either is that I know something or I do not, and either it's true what I know or it's false. It doesn't allow, now it allows you to change once upon new evidence, which is basically, I believe, something that all people that are rational should be. I have an open relationship with the truth. I am always willing and open to new truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between, like, you're talking about agnosticism before, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of definition is like agnostic versus gnostic, right?
But see, there is no Gnostic. I'm saying that's exactly one of the points I say is that is a made-up term. It was a religious order, Gnostic.
Yeah.
Okay, there is in philosophy, epistemology, it does not use agnosticism. Okay, so it doesn't. What it would be is basically it would have to default to either empiricism, saying I can only prove what I see, but then they could doubt that. So then it has to fall back to philosophic skepticism, which philosophic skepticism is agnostic to me. It is the same thing, and I deny that philosophic skepticism is a rational position for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm curious about where you're trying to go with that, because like.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't. It's just I said it's a long way of basically saying that I know there's nothing but natural reality, and that's the only thing I will accept until you show me otherwise. And until you do, there's nothing for me to doubt. All I can say is I don't know. Like a Christian told me one time, because I talked to Ray Comfort when I was in California in Huntington Beach, and he tried. Well, he's good at like finagling things, and he's like, well, how can you explain the Big Bang? You have to explain it. And I said, see, I don't know, and I don't have to explain something I don't know. I don't even, because you have to give me an idea. I said, no, I don't. I have no obligation to give you a hypothesis when I have nothing to base it on. I will tell you this, that in the history of science, every time we look deeper and deeper and deeper, it's natural. A reasonable assumption would be beyond the Big Bang is only natural. But I would not make that assumption because to me there's nothing to base it on.
Well, that would be an hypothesis, not an assumption.
Well, but what I'm saying is
so
because
you would reasonably hypothesize.
But I'm just saying I try not to say hypothesize about that because I don't have science. First off, I'm not a quantum physicist. I don't understand about what the celestial things are doing or not doing exactly to make it really good. I agree that probably they could make hypothesis. I don't feel personally that I can, because I believe, for me, that hypothesis is built on reason and evidence that leads somewhere. But I don't know. They told me they don't know anything beyond this point.
Well, that's why I've kind of adopted as a friendly approach the idea of the best guess. And because I don't know if there was a Big Bang, because I wasn't there, I didn't watch it, I couldn't have seen it, for all these things. But my best guess, for lack of a better word, is that there was.
What, Big Bang?
Yeah, because there's evidence to support it. There's background radiation, there's Alan Guth, there's all this great body of work, which seems to suggest a variety of things, like a Big Bang, the Earth isn't 6,000 years old, the planets are way, way far away. They would make it such that we wouldn't see half the night sky if the Earth was only 6,000 years old, and all these other things.
Well, yeah, right. No, I know, and I agree with it. But that's a hypothesis built on the evidence that we see. I'm saying he tried to tell me what's before that. Like, in other words, what came before the Big Bang or what caused it? I don't know. I don't have to even guess.
Right. Well, or does it even make sense to ask that question? Because,
it may not.
I mean, so that the way that I would approach that is that the time and space are artifacts of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that time doesn't exist outside of space and vice versa. So to say what happened before.
Doesn't space also bend time? So time isn't even a property unto itself, anyways.
Right. No, and that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. So that we have this thing called space-time now. And with our small little monkey brains, we have a certain sense of it, but that isn't necessarily a very generalized thing. So essentially, the history of science is the history of undermining our intuitions.
Right.
So that in other words, prepare to have your mind blown in the next 500 years.
Right.
I just know my deal with agnosticism is I'm often told that people don't.
You talk a little louder.
Okay.
Sorry.
People don't want to be told they're atheists. They don't want to be thought of as atheists because they're like, no, I'm agnostic. I mean, I get that all the time, and it's like, okay, but for all practical purposes, is there a difference here, or is it just you don't want to be told, you don't want to have that horrible label, or you don't want to have people going, how can you prove there is no God? Which is totally silly, but people that aren't versed hate that question because they're like, I don't know, I guess I'm agnostic. I mean, that's how they run from that question.
Well, so you know what Charles Dawkins says about that in The God Delusion, right? So he quotes Jane Curtin, who's growing up, and he says, well, so my parents came up to me and says, well, Jane, we can understand if you don't really believe in God. It's really complicated and all that. I can understand that. But to be an atheist?
Right.
You can't be.
Right.
Well, what do you think the word means?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I want to clarify though that I don't tell the people how to define themselves.
No.
I don't say. In fact, I have one person, it's a friend of mine, that calls himself a Christian atheist. That makes no rational sense to me. But I've heard his position, and even if I didn't agree, he has the right to say it. He said he feels that he follows the teachings of Jesus,
Right.
but Jesus was a man,
Yeah.
not a god, and there's no afterlife or anything. It's just,
so he's a Unitarian.
I guess. I don't.
Yeah. So he follows. So he's in the same steps as every other Christian. They pick and choose which teaching.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Because I'm
He's
sure
a true Christian.
Yeah, I mean, which teachings, and according to whose interpretation, and according to which textual line of lines that we want to go through,
Right.
and then according to, it's just like, it comes to the same thing as far as what God is concerned. Everybody, anybody comes up to me and asks, well, do you believe in God? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So you're going to have to explain to me which one, and then we'll have a discussion.
Right. It's the yes.
Because I have no idea. The term has no intrinsic meaning.
Yep.
It's something I wrote recently as far as, atheism means more than an absence. You're just looking at it going, if you're going to define yourself as the absence of a belief in God, that's kind of ridiculous. Because you first have to, you're under the same problem as the theist. I'm still going to ask you, great, you're an atheist. Which one? So, it ends up being this kind of like, okay, and then of course there's the whole issue of, would you really have a problem with somebody who just happens to label God as the sum total of natural existence?
Well, the grab bag, right? So then it's the grab bag.
Yeah.
Of the,
Well, and I know people who
and
do
God's
that.
good, and God is
And I
love,
don't
and throwing all
particularly
the other
care.
good stuff.
I don't care if they're going to use the term that way. I don't care. I'm not an atheist in the sense that, I have an absence of belief in a word. That doesn't make any sense to me. So then it's an issue of, okay, well, what does that word mean? Then I can explain to you.
I believe the word exists.
Yeah, sure. The term exists.
I
It's
didn't hear you.
fantastically believable, but
I believe the word exists.
Oh,
It does. In many languages.
yes,
I do ask for, when someone asks me, do you believe in God, I'll ask, what do you mean? Can you define God?
Well, if they ask you, what does it mean? What do you say?
I say, I'm an atheist. I do not allow for supernatural phenomena.
There you go.
I know the difference between mythology and
See?
reality.
And that's how I feel exactly. Very cut and dry about that.
well, so then what may make sense for your Christian atheist friend is for him to say, to describe himself as an existentialist. So that, like, as with Soren Kierkegaard, he takes the leap of faith, which I think is not as helpful as you would think it is. What I think may work in that sense is to be an existentialist, but to accept as an existentialist the proposition that some of these doctrines are helpful, and obviously not all of them. And I mean, I think as we were talking about before, that cafeteria Catholic is a redundancy.
Well, I mean, if you do that whole thing of existentialists, anyone could be an existentialist. They just pick and choose. I mean, you could say any Christian is an existentialist by that definition, but they just pick and choose which ones they follow.
Well, whether they admit it or not.
But aren't some of them though being supernaturalists, not just existential? I think wouldn't it just be just the mind?
Well, but do they really think that Carrier's favorite example when someone claimed to believe literally in the Bible said, well, do you really think that Jesus flew up to the top of a mountain and looked down upon the city, having been flown there by the devil? Do you really think that's true?
I forgot about that.
And it's like, well, no, that's metaphorical. Aha! So 9/10 of this, so you're out is, it's metaphorical. So, well, okay, so, whenever you get into trouble, it's all metaphorical. And so I was, Jung's book, Answer to Job, is really good in that sense. So the way that it starts out, he says, all right, let's distinguish between psychic facts and physical facts. So a psychic fact, you can take all of that stuff. Based on mythology, based on your own dreams, based on the symbolism, but it's not a physical fact.
So defining facts a bit there.
Exactly. I mean, I would say that, so a psychic fact ain't a fact.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about epistemology, we say that's not a fact at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you act as if.
I know, yeah.
And that's, and again, that's kind of that's Kierkegaard, act as if.
I think like the idea of a Christian atheist reminds me of like a secular Jew, right? I mean, it's got a parallel, right? It's got a parallel. You follow the rituals, but you don't really believe in the supernatural at all. And even was it Thomas Jefferson did that with fire? Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't agree, but when he explained it, it didn't sound as unreasonable as when I first heard the term. I thought, lunatic.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay.
Contradiction in terms.
Yeah, I guess maybe it doesn't sound as, at first I'm like, dude, go read Atheist.
You still have to be really picky though with a lot of the things that don't make sense without some supernatural backing. It's like, why would you do these things? Like,
give all you have to the poor.
Yeah, right. Well, Ayn Rand was an atheist, right? She was having none of that.
Yeah. But she did collect Social Security.
I know. That's about that.
Yeah, that always seems to happen. That when people get to the point where it's their turn to, either collect Social Security or drive on public roads or send a subsidized letter through the mail or use the organized wavelengths of their cell phone.
Yeah, or the internet.
They just sweep that under the rug. That always get a kick out. They're, like with Laura and her parents. So, I mean, they're these dyed-in-the-wool, libertarian, arch-conservative, Jesus, guns, and death to everybody else. And so their big thing now is they're figuring out how to conduct an illegal conveyance of all their assets so that they can go into a nursing home and collect Social Security and not give up any of their money. So, yeah.
But it's not built on an ethical premise to begin with, so.
Well, it's built on the ethical premise of
selfishness.
Screw you, mate. I got mine.
Right. Yeah.
Which is
egoism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend in college that was her family's thing. They had tons of money, and they were kind of the opposite. They were kind of like very expressly socialist kind of ideals. But when it came down to getting your school funding and stuff, they hid all their money offshore, so they didn't pay any taxes. And I'm like, you're socialist, you don't pay any taxes. How does that work exactly? And she was like, I don't know. That's what my parents do. I'm like, okay.
I'm socialist with everybody else's money.
Right. Exactly.
That's how that is. Yeah.
As long as I can.
The modern Democrat party.
Corporate socialism.
Exactly.
They socialize loss and they profitize, and privatize wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
it's modern capitalism. That's what that is.
Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase Bank.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or police departments.
Right now, yeah.
Considering the police chief of Ferguson retired and he got himself a $98,000 severance package. I personally would love to create utter chaos in my town and then leave with $100 grand in my pocket. I mean, well, actually I wouldn't because I'm moral. But it's just one of those things.
You'd want to move.
I'd want to move. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's not that much. I mean, that's probably 2/3 of the salary.
Yes.
So
No, that it was a year's worth of salary. So he
yeah,
was, he
so
was
I
earning,
mean, that's
yeah. Although I'd like to know how a police chief was earning $100,000 a year, in charge of a police station for a town of 21,000 people. Really?
Yeah, I think that's probably a
That's
steal.
more than
No, there's
city
more than-
commissioners.
You'd be amazed.
No, commissioners don't make very much, but
I mean, it's just like,
but it-
really? No wonder you needed to.
Oh, well, the
milk
jail
everybody
guards
for the
make
money.
the jail guards at RJC.
That's true.
So
Yeah. No, lieutenants make that out.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
and,
Jail guard's pretty scary.
Oh yeah, no,
They
A lot of
are-
them have to deal with some pretty outrageous.
Part of it has to do with the way the system's set up, again, but a lot of crazies end up in jail and not in mental health things.
Yeah, that's true.
well, yeah, I mean, we've skimped on the mental health system, and so that's what we have.
And that's in Washington State, and we're one of the higher ones that.
Yeah.
No, if I don't remember what you do, but I
Yeah,
remember
I worked in the King County jail system in mental health for a while.
Oh, did you? Okay, okay,
So
cool.
it was.
What is it?
It was
evaluated, or-
It was no, as a case manager. So
Okay.
basically, it was facilitating connections between people in the work education release program, and then they, connecting with outside resources. So
Right.
the idea being, you had a nonviolent offense. That, of course, is only the current offense was nonviolent.
Right. No, I understand.
And then
I'm a criminal defense lawyer.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So the current offense is nonviolent. You can have multiple assaults in the background, but as long as you first this one isn't. And then so the jail time ends up being misdemeanor. It's 1 year or less.
Right.
And so it says, well, the idea being, we don't want you to be going to jail for a year, be cut off from society, and then have to find yourself back in and going, now what? Nobody's going to hire me. I have no idea where to go, and so forth. Which is a legitimate point.
Right.
The difficulty is, of course, not too many people are even going to hire you, and then there's very little funding for job training, healthcare, education, retraining, so on, that is going for people who are in that situation. So it's like, okay, so then you go, wait, I'm just going to do another misdemeanor and I'll be back here for another 8 months. So that, or I just won't get caught next time. Like, okay,
Nonviolent.
currently non-violent. Considering I dealt with people who had multiple rape charges, it's
Because I was thinking at first when you said that, I thought nonviolent drug.
Oh, and in drug offenses, depending on the amount in which drug is classified as, can be, and even it depends on if the judge stipulates it as a misdemeanor as well. So,
Because you work in drug court.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Yeah.
right now I'm working in community court.
oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
This brings up,
I'm the soup kitchen paralegal.
Uh-huh.
That's how I describe my job.
well, this brings
Yeah.
up a topic that I think we talked about, a couple weeks ago. I have asked them 3 times to turn the music down.
I can hardly hear you with
I know. I've asked them 3 times to turn the music down.
Oh, okay. That's probably great.
I know.
Well, yeah, it's because we've got a speaker hanging right down.
Yeah,
Like
if
a large
they didn't think it's
phallus
on,
symbol.
yeah.
No, they know. We come here every time I have them turn it down, and it's like I've done it 3 times and they haven't done it.
Don't
There you go.
There's down and
Thank you.
there's down and then there's off.
Now, can you
Yeah,
hear
she-
me when
Yeah, she denied the existence of music. So.
I was just about to go there. It's like, she's a music atheist. There's either one or no.
He's an amusicist.
That's hilarious.
Do you remember the meeting we taught? You brought up the list of
Yes,
topics.
yeah.
Okay, one of them, the one we picked, I think, was about the drug.
Right, right. Yes.
Jail time.
Yes.
You were here, right?
Yeah, that was
Okay. Well, so since then, do you know something about a group called the Human Solution?
I didn't know there was a human problem.
Oh, are
pretty
you
sure.
kidding me? Come on.
That's not how you frame it.
So I guess these people, because last time we were asking, well, what do we do?
Yes.
Well, these people, the Human Solution will go help you when you've been arrested or whatever, and actually appear in court just to support you and so on. So they really do help you out. Well, I personally found out about a case out where I live, Black Diamond. This couple, Josh and Debbie, 2 kids, 8 and 6, and an older teenage daughter who wasn't involved. They manufactured a controlled substance, and it was
Called meth. Called meth.
Yeah.
No, it was.
It is Black Diamond.
It was dab, the wax for dabbing.
So
pot.
they're making marijuana
Is it marijuana legal?
liquid.
Yes and
Well,
no.
they were manufacturing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Marijuana
so
manufactured.
They were,
Oh,
Yeah.
and they did not have over the allowed amount for doing what they do. I don't know how it went, but anyway. Here, maybe you could read that. I have my glasses on. What does it say? Just start with that.
substance charged in July of 2014 for manufacturing a controlled substance that was the case was dropped to a state level. Then yesterday, 3/10/15, they were informed that on 4/1/15 their case would be picked back up by the feds.
Right. See, what happened is they're dragging them through court.
well, I can explain how the mechanics of that.
Okay.
So frequently, the state, either or the king, either the governor or the president,
Yeah.
will dismiss the case while they investigate. So they say, "Oh, well, we've dismissed your case." They've dismissed it without prejudice, which means they can refile it at any time of the statute of limitations.
But not until they accrued attorney's fees. They lost both of their young children for a week.
Well,
They were taken
sure,
out
that's
of the
CPS.
home.
So CPS gets involved. That's independent. They don't. That's not part of the case. That's maybe a collateral consequence. But these are civil investigations that go on or conducted by other agencies. So this collateral damage isn't part of it.
Because you can still be found not guilty of a particular charge, and yet at the same time be found negligent in providing a healthy environment for the children. That has nothing to do necessarily with a legal
No,
charge.
it wasn't.
I mean,
It
it's-
was because they were both arrested for this. The kids were there. They had to remove them. There was no one else there.
Right.
It
Well, yeah,
wasn't the environment
initially, yeah.
being
Yeah.
Anyway, so she said that they have accrued these enormous legal expenses.
Yeah.
and
Well, did they hire counsel or did they go through the public
Oh
defender?
yes, no, I think they hired
Well,
someone.
it wouldn't have gone me
I
then.
think I don't know. I'd have to call her to make sure.
Uh-huh.
But the point is, this group, Human Solutions, stepped up and helped pay the fees, the attorneys, helped get their kids back quicker. Stayed on top of the case for them. And these are people who are just trying to help people dealing with the drug, especially the pot thing. People who are in jail now who shouldn't be anymore, non-violent, pot, whatever. I mean, well, for me, I think it's any drug that's non-violent, but it's
I agree.
You do?
Yep.
But it's wonderful to know that there is actually a thing that we could do. And that would be atheists helping these people, right?
Yeah.
Someone was asking, what can we do? Oh, it was Reginald. What can we do?
Yeah.
That's
It's
wonderful.
an idea.
So is this group something that we could support? I mean, that as an atheist, we could support?
That's what I was thinking.
It's probably a nonprofit, I imagine.
What's it called? People helping people, or?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
People helping people?
That's, no, it's called Human Solution.
Human solution.
Solution.
Human helping people.
It
isn't
is
that
people
small?
helping
Yeah.
people. I didn't know that was a thing.
I mean, I was trying to think of what the name was. I think people helping people is a better name.
Yeah, it would be. It describes it. Yeah.
Have you checked it out? Have gone on online?
No, I've just gotten all
You
of it.
just-
And then I asked somebody else, hey, have you heard about this?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's
they go and they sit
interesting.
in court with you. See, this one case, she was telling me that they went to support them. In fact, there were like a dozen of them there to support them. The judge noticed they all had little buttons on that said Human Solution, but he didn't know what they said. He could see the buttons. So he asked to find out. He got mad. He made them leave.
You
Really?
can't.
He did.
Oh, good, good. Well, that would be, judicial misconduct.
Right.
Yeah. Well, first she said that they had them take the buttons off,
Oh,
and then he
No,
said,
you can't do that either.
well, he said, okay, now you have to
Yeah, well, he can as long as you're ignorant of what he can. and
Yeah,
cannot
ignorance
do.
of the law.
It's-
Well, I'm kind of a student of these things.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like the ability of people to do things is
Right.
contingent upon
Well,
the other
as
parties.
Oliver Wendell Holmes
ignorance.
says, the law is merely a prophecy on how the court will be.
Yes.
So if you get jury duty and you don't want to get lots and lots of buttons.
Yes, Human Solution buttons.
The more buttons
Well,
you have, the more likely they
and
are.
hope to
Right,
get that
and,
one judge.
and make sure they're anti-state and
Yes,
pro-defense, and you'll be
yes.
gone. But if they're pro-police, you're going to be having a long week there. You're almost
I
certain.
mean, half the time.
yeah, I don't. I just tell them my actual political opinion. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you're out.
they don't want an opinion. Yeah, they want anyone with strong opinions. But if you're like,
Do
say
they
you're an
actually even
atheist,
get past this?
They made me sit down in the seat
Oh my.
for jury.
So even half the time, like, I don't know if they can ask you directly, but like the whole atheist thing has gotten a lot of people out of jury. Really? Yeah. If you claim to be a skeptic, they're like, it's gonna be a hung jury. Like as soon as they hear that.
Oh no, I know. I tell my political opinion. I'm a mutualist, which is a socialist anarchist. And they said, "Do you believe that there's, that you could be fair?" Well, of course I could, but I'm always going to side on that. I'm not for people being forced because people own themselves. So if you start telling me things that they can't do to their own body, I am not going to feel that that's fair.
Well, what will happen, in my experience with this is that if you can't be fair in a pro-state way, you're on the jury. But but if you can't be fair in a way that you might not convict somebody that somebody else would, well, then you're off.
Well, I'm saying I would never convict someone for prostitution, for drugs, and things that have to do with their own body.
Right, and so they do a similar thing with the death penalty. So if you're against the death penalty,
I'm against it.
You wouldn't be on a death penalty case. So which seems kind of unfair per se. Because
I've
that's,
known people that they have the whole skeptic thing. They say they're a skeptic or an atheist, and they're gone in no time. Like they're just like because.
well, who struck them? Were they struck for cause or for? I mean, it was probably preemptive because well, I mean that's a preemptive. I mean, so the state may have done that.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't the defense attorney, can't they kick you out on a peremptory?
Yeah, no, everybody gets peremptory. So basically, you get the least objectionable jury to both sides. You don't get.
Where they can find them? Or?
Well, I mean, what I always tell my clients is, well, look, this is not an impartial jury. This is a jury of people who didn't have the wherewithal to get up jury duty.
Yeah.
So, why is that? Well, they probably hate criminals, and don't look now, but they think you're one. So,
Yeah.
So good luck with this.
Yeah, I don't know how my sister ended up on the murder trial. She ended up on they had a sequestered jury and they were in a hotel all locked down and stuff. And I guess she was just like, I don't know. She's very non-involved. So she just like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of strong opinions. Okay, you're in.
Yeah, no, that tends to. And it might be the case she didn't say a word during voir dire.
Yeah, they said running for a long time, and she was out of work for so long, and it was just weird. It was really hard. That and everybody there got food poisoning.
I think last time I didn't say anything, but I was juror number 45.
Right.
They weren't really that interested in asking me any questions, and I wasn't terribly interested.
Well, I mean, I've burned through a whole room.
You could do that.
Yeah, no, it's like, you know, that, and you just have no idea what people are going to say.
Well, how can you even get the impartial? I mean,
That's what I want to know.
How can you?
Well, it's people who lie to themselves the most effectively. So, I mean, so here's one of the things that I do. I say, look, okay, two people are standing, you know, panelists, you know, two people are standing watching a traffic light. One says it's red, one says it's green. Who can you believe? Who can you believe, right? Anyone? I mean, you just have no, yeah, I mean, it could be either one. It's a toss. All right, now one of them is a cop. Who do you believe now?
Whoever said the red.
And it's and if they say that, oh well, you know, I mean,
It's an immediate case of consequentialism.
yeah, and, you know, if it's like, well, because based on their training and experience, really, look, I can tell you right now, and I believe the state will stipulate that they don't have a class called looking at stoplights in cop school.
No,
They don't have that.
because who's going to come up with it? I swear it was green.
And then,
But the cop said, authority rules, you lose.
yeah, well, and
End of
then on the
story.
other hand, can we agree that about the most unfair thing you can do is decide who should win a case based on the names of the parties, right? Like Bush v. Gore. Oh, you know, Bush. Oh, Gore, right? The names of the parties. Well, look, I can tell you right now that that not one of my witnesses will be wearing a badge and carrying a gun. What do you think now? Can you really be fair? And so, oh yes, of course. Yeah, right.
Right. No.
Yeah. So that's why I'm less passionate about it.
But isn't there qualities to the response that can lead you towards the belief that a person is being probably more close to the truth or fabricating more?
Well, yes. If you're trained to get up and testify,
Yeah.
you will testify great. If you are wearing a shiny uniform and carrying a gun, you will look good.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, courts are not there for the determination of truth claims. They're
No, I was-
there
I
for
was-
the
yeah.
determination of best story that people will then believe.
No, I'm just talking about choosing a jury is what I meant.
Yeah.
Like the jury tells you, because I know that there's ways that people talk about things that sometimes that if they're too sure and they seem to have too many facts, sometimes that's not a good sign, because sometimes that means that they're good at fabricating what they want to believe. Or some people are like, I'm not sure, but I think it was this, and it probably was this. I'm just saying sometimes the
Right,
ways.
and there's a special
on the other end,
there's a special name for someone who testifies like that.
yeah,
Detective.
yeah. Well, and yeah. Well, and you can find just as many. You know that's actually one example of what a lot of cop shows will display. It's like, well, if they're coming up with all these details, that or they just have the training that they're recalling this. Until you have collaborative evidence to support or disprove, big fat question mark.
Well, what I was saying is
it's
because
like-
because people, all I was trying to say is that people are not, even I know people that are experienced, are not like 100% aware.
Oh, no.
So if I say it was this car, exactly this number, exactly this amount of people, exactly the good clothes, the exact amount of hair, I start going, whoa, that's too many
Well, and
exacts.
it's manufactured certainty.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, so one of my favorite.
They've rehearsed the story very well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and it's been reinforced.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
for example, they went in and they identified someone and says, well, I can't tell you how you did, but this is great. We caught a killer today. And they say, oh, cool, so I got the right guy. And then they go back to identify at a preliminary hearing. And, oh, man, we got the right guy. And then by the time they get up in front of the jury, it's like, I can never be more sure of anything in my life.
Exactly. I am less sure that I'm sitting here right now than that guy did it.
And our memories are complete fictions. And
Oh, yeah.
it's completely manufactured.
Yeah.
Well, look, how do you know if a cop is lying? And I won't say because his lips are moving.
Yes.
but how do you know? I mean, because, well, he's going to get up and say, and the first thing out of his mouth is a lie. Officer, your report says, 2011. It was night, and Do you remember, do you have an independent recollection of what happened on that day 4 years ago? Yes, I do. Seriously?
Really?
Okay, so let's see. How many people have you arrested between now and then? I don't really know. Well, can we agree that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000? And so this was a dark night, and you are claiming to have independent recollection of all of these events. Yeah.
But aren't they also motivated because they're supposed to do that to make sure convictions happen, so that they're manufacturing it out of the state's force that they're supposed to?
Right, that's their job.
Yeah,
It's
their job,
to come
right,
and say they remember.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but how can they? What's shocking to me is that anybody believes them.
Well, this because everybody is operating under the same assumption that one, memory operates a certain way, that people's ability to make choices operates in the same way, that reality, then follows suit. I mean, it's one of the most profoundly ridiculous assumptions in a retributive justice system that people have absolute libertarian free will. I mean, it's assumed. Bordering, unless you can show by reason of insanity, which is not nearly as well as often put in front of a court as people think.
Oh yeah, no,
it's very rare. But the mitigating circumstances have to be pretty darn extreme. But it's still there of. It's still there as to the assumption that, regardless of circumstance, you could have chosen otherwise. Period. But we don't live in that kind of world, but whatever, our justice system,
But I think our justice system is wrong in general, like the fact that Jeffrey Dahmer went to jail and not a mental hospital. I mean, he was eating people.
Yeah. But that's
not
part of,
sane.
That's a continuation of that very issue, though. Is that it's a false understanding of human psychology.
Right, yeah, but I'm saying is they intentionally do it because they want to put him in jail. They want to have, so it's a lie in general, because they know it's a lie, but they do it because they want to put it in.
They want to punish versus...
Yes, punish, yeah.
But if some poor bastard comes to me and says, I don't want you to represent me, Jesus represents me. It's like, well, he's not in the bar in the state.
Has anyone ever said that?
Oh, yeah. That's why I know what my answer is.
Please tell one of those stories. That's hilarious.
I mean, you hear this all the time. But generally, I can talk people down.
How often? Like what percentage?
Oh, I don't know what percentage, but I mean,
just
it comes
throw
up
it
a
out there.
couple times.
10%.
Not that much. I mean, it comes up a couple times.
Okay.
So I mean, in terms of all the people I represent and things that are thinking about going to trial, you get that. You get that kind of stuff that causes me to roll my eyes into the back of my head, and I have to kind of jar them loose.
So tell us one. That's hilarious.
Well, I mean, you just get this stuff. It's like, well, that sounds to me like he's pretty nutty. But I mean, that doesn't even come close to to insanity. And simply because someone is psychotic doesn't mean that they're not competent or even guilty by reason of insanity. It's like, well, were the voices so loud that he could no longer tell right from wrong? No, that's
a really difficult determination.
They were pretty loud.
Put a speaker inside your head and really start ramping this up.
Yeah. So I mean, because what we've come to know about mental health is within the last 100 years, and our common law system goes back about 500 and hasn't moved. I mean, my evidence professor, he hated the subject. I mean, he said, I hate teaching evidence. He enjoyed teaching property, but he hated evidence.
So what did you teach him?
No, evidence.
No, he said he loved
teaching property.
What do you mean by that?
The property law.
Oh, property law.
But
I thought maybe
that's fine.
like there was evidence and there's some other kind of fact called property.
Yeah, no, there's like the laws of landlord tenant and
I just thought maybe
that stuff. But he hated evidence because look, it's completely valid. It's the psychology of the 15th century farmer. It's complete crap. Like one of the exceptions that they have is a hearsay exception is excited utterance. So in other words, if you say something under the stimulation of the excitement, it's not likely that you're going to lie. And so then even if you don't know who said it, it's like, my God, he has a gun. You heard somebody say that. You don't even know who it was. that could come in under the excited utterance rule. Well, whoever, thought of that rule had never been to a sports event.
Yeah.
He's out. He's safe. Which one? So it's not. I'm disappointed in my field.
Well, and this goes into why I have a difficulty looking at, for instance, it's making the atheist rounds about how there was in Germany, there's a guy who is being forced. The judgment was passed that this measles vaccine denialist had made a claim saying, "I bet 100,000 euros that
heard about that.
That you can't prove this." So a guy, likely chuckling the entire time, gathered a bunch of data together and presented it, and the guy, of course, as anybody would have guessed, refused to acknowledge that it was true. So he took him to court. The judge ruled that no, he had, presented, this compelling case, therefore you need to pay up. And of course, the, humanists, pro-science people are all going, see, this is a judgment for our side. And I'm going, I don't think you understand the problematic nature of the legal system. It's similar to, for instance, like the Dover School case with teaching about creationism and evolution. It's like a judge can't, as much as some people would like them to, can't make a summary judgment as to a scientific principle. It's a different.
Based on what you're telling me, that isn't what happened. So in other words, this person formed what's called bargaining in the unilateral mode, created a contractual obligation for himself. So the unilateral contract is like a reward contract. Like if you return the scalp of a spotted eagle, I'll give you $100,000.
Exactly.
And so that was a contract. There was offer. There was acceptance. You accept a unilateral contract by actual performance. He performed it at his detriment, and is now presenting evidence of his claim, and is asking the claim to be enforced.
And insofar as that works, absolutely. What's amusing is that people are presenting it as if it's a win for science. And I'm going, that's not how this works.
Right. It's interpretation.
It's a win for people being stupid. And it's for in making these making these kind of the contracts, but it's not to say there and say, well, because the judge ruled accordingly, therefore that's something you can bring up to show people that the vaccine denial is bad. No, it's not. There's the two camps. That's not the point here. If that was the case,
I see, yeah. No, I think you're right, because on the other hand, let's say they'd said that, well, look, that this was not, this was more like an advertisement. It wasn't an actual offer. It was just a solicitation to bargain. And
would you have then taken it as a single
court rules against science?
No.
Right. Well, I didn't share. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I didn't share it. I share a lot of stuff about anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
I did not share that one because I feel like, what does it matter if the court ruled either way? Because the court has no bearing over science. No. So whether he would have said it's false, I would.
Scientific.
Now, if they had a scientific expert validate it, that would have been more impressive than me, or a whole group of scientists all validate it.
But then I would have shared their papers and their opinions rather than the court ruling.
But I'm just saying the court itself giving a credence to what he thinks the scientific thing doesn't make it any more or less, more scientific.
The court isn't doing that either. The court is simply deciding what sounds like a simple contract dispute.
Right.
It isn't,
If you brought up these scientists, then the anti-vaxxers would say, well, those scientists are paid anyway, so.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm saying for me. I'm saying I didn't share it because I saw it having for me no value. Who cares if the judge? Because it still goes to the science to me. So it's science versus non-science.
And so there are a lot of bizarre things that happen in law with these things, and a lot of these cases are really born on the backs of the seriously mentally ill. You know, I remember one case that we came across in law school that someone was trying to sue the devil.
Yep.
Really?
Right, and the case was thrown out for lack of personal jurisdiction.
We have no.
You know, you can't serve him.
What was
There's
it?
no jurisdiction over the underworld, you know?
There's somebody attempting. I read it, and then all of a sudden it got shared. You know, it got shared enough in other circles, and now somebody is suing. Who there's an Indian guru, who in a fit of, I have to admit, I'm impressed. I mean, I find the man to be reprehensible intellectually and morally, but as far as his ability to get people to do horrible, nasty things to themselves, he's flat out God. I mean, he convinced 400 men to castrate themselves.
See, this is Darwinism at work.
Lord, I'm like, I have a hard enough time convincing people that the light is great, let alone hacking your balls off. And I'm going, and now there's somebody who's now claiming that, that there was a problem with it. I'm going, I guess maybe an Indian law, not here. But,
Well, no. I mean, look, but if he's harming people, I mean, what? So what? Was he charged with assault, or was he?
I'm not sure what the lawsuit is.
I mean, he might be sued for misrepresentation.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Can it be like a con? Like if you con someone out of money? I mean,
Yeah.
You sold them, cut your nuts off for this purpose, and that purpose isn't real. Then you've had you've conned them, right?
Right. So in other words, one of my personal favorites, the 9 common law elements of common law fraud. Knowing false material representation, intending to induce action on which one actually innocently and reasonably relies. So that.
But then wouldn't they have to then prove that the man knowingly said such in a fashion that he knew it to be false?
Well,
I mean, they'd have to prove that the guru knowingly stated such knowing that it was in fact.
Well, it was intending to do action.
Yeah.
So, but whether.
His claim was it made you more holy.
It makes you more holy.
Yeah.
You were closer to God if you did this.
But he doesn't believe it and the evidence is that he's not castrated.
No.
He didn't do it.
Well, he's busy with other wives.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I don't know. It's a thin claim.
I would
because
he
he isn't saying that you would give them $100. He's saying they would be more holy. And maybe he agrees that they are more holy now. Probably you're more holy. Congratulations, you've done something that I never do.
Closer to God.
Good on you.
It gives
Good for you.
a certain interpretation of Paul's dictum of it'd be better to marry than at least burn. Okay. That's a ringing endorsement of marriage. I prefer
Damning
if
with faint
nobody got
praise.
married, but if you absolutely must, it's better than.
The alternative.
Okay.
No, he actually had it done at he had a medical facility. He owned one because he had a whole lot of money. Just
making
guru
money off
business.
Wacko guru.
Just from his
that guru, and he had them brought to a medical facility to do it. It wasn't like guys out in the field.
with their own switchblades.
Yeah, they actually went to a medical facility and had the all supposedly clean environment and all that.
Well,
It's like,
I mean, that.
He's conscientious.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, these.
Probably made money off the process.
So, for example, I
He
always
owns the
describe,
medical facility. They had to pay for the procedure.
Yeah.
So he's making money off.
Yeah, that's what I call a good business practice. We shouldn't be suing this guy. We should be studying. But as an counterexample, that I describe, I met this guy. He seemed nice enough. He seemed to be well educated, and then he forces me to use narcotics and slashes my throat. And that was Dr. Namu Kim, Swedish Cancer Center, Harvard graduate, and I thank him for doing so because he removed a cancerous tumor. So these things are close calls. I mean, just because they're outrageous facts on one side or the other doesn't necessarily mean that a crime was or wasn't I mean, the dialogue I had with him beforehand was interesting. You know, it's like I always revert to character. It's like, you know, that. So, Doc, I mean, can we negotiate this? No, count down from 100.
Well, it's like it's similar to the I think it was Oregon, where I think it was a girl. She was 12, 13, something, teenager, I think. Where diagnosed with, I think it was leukemia, some form of it, well established as being amenable to standard cancer treatment, and that it will be in full remission. You're going to live. I mean, it's not like a big, you know, some of the treatments are
Yeah.
questionable.
Right.
But this one, I mean, it's like 98%. You're going to be fine. The parents, because of their religious background, were like, nope, not going to do it. So the state took the kid.
Right. 'Cause-
Forced, you know, care, and
Yeah.
she's now in full remission.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole question comes up like,
Can you do
I'm
that?
really curious. I mean, on one hand, it's one of those where I'm like, oh, absolutely, I'm glad that the kid's living. On the other hand, I'm going, I agree only because I agree with the outcome
Right.
and the particular people that made the decision. I can't guarantee that the next person who's in charge is going to make, you know, a similar judgment. And it's like, okay, well, now what?
Well, and you're right. You're right. This is these are the cases that are on
Well,
on the
and
margin. You know that I mean that's why it's this stuff is. Look, I mean this is not a perfect system. In fact, it sucks pretty badly. And the only one that I can think of that's worse is anyone that
Anywhere
I can
else,
think
yeah. It's kind of like, well, democracy is a great
So
system.
what do you think would make it better?
of. Oh, nothing. I mean,
Nothing?
people should be smarter. That would help. But
So
I
there's
can't
nothing
think
in the
of
system
anything
itself,
systematic.
nothing the system can
What
do.
if they decided, okay, we need to revise our rules of evidence so that they have scientific backing?
Well, I mean, you would have what we have now. I mean, so in order to I just think that it would be nice if judges were smarter. That's one thing that I can think of. I mean, that the phenomena of black robe disease is real. You know, you put somebody on the bench and his brains go to his feet. You know, it's like I can't believe I had lunch with you. You know, and you.
We need RoboCops and Robo-judges.
Well, you know that again, you know, and the only one that's worse is anyone that I can think of, and I think the Robo one is a good, you know, or the precogs, or the Minority Report.
We know ahead of time that you would have. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now what?
Well, but interestingly, there's some science to that effect now. I mean, that you can predict, you know, so neuroscientists can predict what you're going to do before you've come up with the idea of what you're going to do.
In very, very basic,
Right.
pushing
And
button
only
scenarios.
Exactly.
And only 78% of the time, not 100%.
Yeah, not 100%,
And then they also did a second study to that where they told the person at the last minute, change your mind, and it was about 50%. So it's
Well, right. And this is all up for grabs. But the things that we thought of as being you know, fundamental, like you know, free will and all this stuff. Well, it's all pretty iffy.
Well, it's one thing.
It's interesting.
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
He has a
You've
comment.
been.
Yeah, go ahead, Mandy. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just, talking about all this legal stuff, you know, the death with dignity, this is on my mind. My dad has Alzheimer's. And he's an atheist, and he does not want to be kept alive. But there's that, I think it's a 6 month,
Yes. Yeah.
that
Two
you have-
separate doctors
yes.
need to declare
Right.
that they've got within a 6 month window.
Right, and he's not depressed.
And he's not depressed.
Right. But you know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And he knows what's going to happen. And it's like, who makes that decision that someone who has a terminal illness where they are going to be totally incapacitated and not even know who they are at one point or who their loved ones are? Why can't there be a way for him to with help, because I
Yeah,
mean, he
no,
doesn't
that's an
wanna go
interesting
take
point.
a
You know, so
himself.
there might be somebody who does elder law who
Yeah.
would do that. But what I think you want to do is you want to set up the structure so that if anybody were to challenge his
Like
the
a
decision.
DVR kind of, the paper, isn't that what it's
DNR.
called?
DNR.
Yeah. So that I mean the things you can set
That's
up
initial,
with
yeah.
you know with DNR and with advanced directives and
Right.
things like that. So that and he would probably check in periodically with the doctors, and everyone would know what his decisions and everything were. And when he got to the point that he started feeling iffy, he could go in and and tell them enough was enough.
Does
But
he?
but
It's still not going to.
It
It's
Doesn't
still
he
not gonna fall
notarize
within
it?
that 6 months window.
well,
though.
that's
Well,
not
yeah, I
a
think-
magic
I
bullet.
think that, well, you can have an advance directive saying
Right.
don't resuscitate,
Right.
but I think the death with dignity, that's for like getting a prescription for lethal medication.
Yes,
Yeah.
You
yes.
can't do that unless you have like the 6 month.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
2
And,
independent
and the
doctors.
diagnosis.
You have
But
to
then, and you have
diagnose
to
it.
be in your
Alzheimer's.
right mind. You
And
have to be
yes,
able
you
to.
have to be in your
Yes.
right mind and you have to be
Yeah.
able to self-administer.
Exactly.
And so if he has Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
maybe
He won't.
he won't.
He won't qualify.
There
Yeah,
won't
he
Yeah.
won't.
be a point when he qualifies.
Right.
No.
Well, see now that would be that again if he went through all those hoops and set those up, that would be a great case to litigate. And if I were he or the people involved with him, I would make sure that there were access to the stuff that he would want, so that you might not have to litigate.
Well,
Be a heck of a case
because-
for. I mean, if he has the resources
Right.
to bring it up,
Right.
it's definitely something that
Yeah.
all it takes is somebody
Yeah.
to start litigating and going, look, I want an expansion on this. We know what the consequences of this
Well,
are.
some of it's statutory. So
Yeah.
now that you've got doctors who are limited by their licensing requirements.
Yeah.
to-
Well, and
What
then-
would happen if someone gave him, like, say,
Oh, you'd be in big trouble.
No. But let me finish. I'm saying, give him, like, say, heroin or something. Whatever. I don't know, but something enough that he can kill himself. But you didn't give it to him to kill him. You gave it to them, and then moved away. And then later they killed themselves with it. Would you still be liable that you
be.
gave
Yeah.
it to them?
Very likely. Yeah.
That's your
So
account
cases of a sale of narcotics where somebody dies from it, or are treated like essentially as manslaughter, which is
Yeah,
what
good
someone in
point.
that situation would have to worry about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there any kind of legal groups that would help with that?
Well, the Hemlock Society is one that I know of.
How about two people gave him half a dose?
That's called joint.
Let's spread this
Well, that's called joint and several liability.
The whole family gives them 10%.
Yeah.
50
Well, that's
people.
joint.
Here's
Now you have
one.
comparative negligence. This is. All right, bring it on. I can play Stump the Band with you guys.
Are you asking, though, is anyone's opinion about the law in
Then
general?
what if you say,
Well, yeah. I'm just like, what is?
I see this
What is? There's
animal
really, he
that
has
you
no
have
option other
when
than.
you judge.
Well, for
Doing it
me,
himself.
people own
Put
themselves.
down.
Put
That means they have the right
Yeah.
to abortions, they have the right to die, they have the
If
right
you were
to drugs,
handling veterinary
prostitution.
medicine.
But I'm saying, so to me, and even mental illness, I disagree.
in
People
case
should
you
not
need to
have
do
to live
that
their
with
life
a
suffering under
judge.
mental illness. If you know you have depression
I mean,
for 6 months,
yeah,
that's one
but
thing.
they
But if you know you have a clinical
Working
depression
with
for the
prison.
rest of your life, you
So-
should have the right to say that's
Well, yeah,
not
but
living
he
for me.
said what he was
You
doing.
own yourself. I don't get to decide.
Right.
So I mean, I
But if
don't
you
think
say,
like if I have
when
schizophrenia and I'm going to have
for
voices and
this
it's
animal that might be
immensely
suffering,
troubling, and I don't want to live the rest of my life, I shouldn't have to.
But Alzheimer's.
So my opinion.
Yeah, but Alzheimer's is different
So if
from
he-
that
if he
in
got-
that
You don't know it.
you don't know.
But no, I know, but I'm
But
saying.
you just wait, you waste away, you lose
Right.
everything.
No, I know you do,
You
but I'm
live
not-
at home and
right,
all
yeah.
that, your money's going to a,
Right, but so you're asking compassion that other people
Right.
kill you. Is that what you're asking?
Well,
Yeah, I have a hard
at
time with
least
that
be
because
with you.
well, they can be with you, but I'm just saying that
No, they can if you're gonna do it.
yeah. But I'm just saying I personally have a harder time with I have more easier time with people doing it to themselves. I have a lot harder time than someone else doing it. Not saying that I think they can't, but because
And there's a difference between whether or not a person, you know, on the one hand saying that people have a right to their own, the determination of their own life path, to be, you know, kind of hallmarky about it. And, you know, another one to say that, okay, well, that's one question. The next one is, because let's face it, at this point, there's nobody stopping him or anybody else in a similar situation from ending their life. Plenty of scenarios out there that can, you know, work out for that. The ramifications of it are the next question. You know, a person can do,
Well, of course.
you know,
yeah.
objectively
Right.
whatever they want,
Right.
but then the question then becomes, okay, well, what structure is in place to
Right.
deal with the after effects of
Right.
what they've done? You know, if a person does commit suicide, what happens to their property? What happens to, you know, how things have been set up? What happens to any kind of charges that may be brought up to those who
And he's married.
contributed? What happens to,
Yeah,
I mean, so it's, you know, life insurance policy. A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
companies will not pay out if it's suicide. Okay, well, now what? I mean, so it becomes,
I know, so where is the freedom that we're supposed to have as human beings in that scenario?
Let's see, where
Where-
is
where-
it
where is
written that you get
this is a republic.
Well,
What are you
look,
talking about?
Well, I'm
right
just
to die
saying
is not
we
a
don't
right.
live in a,
I mean, no, I mean, there's no
Right.
assertive
Right.
right to die. There's no
Right.
affirmative right to die,
Right.
and you know the courts have held that, unfortunately. So,
Right.
I mean, I think that's going to get
But
relitigated,
isn't that
Right.
not based on religion?
What's about dying?
Specifically,
Right to die?
that you cannot kill yourself?
The
That
well,
would- I
preciousness
mean,
of life or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
you know, it's hard to say
is it
what
precious?
it's based on. I mean,
Yeah.
that arguably it is, but it's probably, you know, it's probably maybe not. It's kind of a common law.
it's certainly one.
I think there's also
variable.
fear, even in the secular world, could be, I don't have it, but I mean, some people have fear of like eugenics, like people killing people intentionally or picking the
yeah.
people that should die. Like, I had one guy tell me, well, because he believes that there's an overpopulation, that we should limit the younger people. And I said, well, if there's an overpopulation, who we should, he was old, he was like 78 years old or something. I said, under your thinking, I don't agree with you. I think it's a myth what you're talking about. But if it was true, and you believe that someone should be eliminated, why not the person who's already at the end of life, not the ones that are coming in?
We're going to make an arbitrary ruling.
Make an
Why
arbitrary
not make
ruling.
that one?
Right. I said, why doesn't that, the one that can have a whole life ahead of him, the one that life is almost at its end? And then he's like, well, and I said, I don't agree with either. I'm just making a point that your
No,
logic.
It's an
Well,
excellent.
if someone has terminal cancer and they're given 3 months, 6 months, whatever to live, they can have their loved ones there. They can be in a calm setting with people that they care about in their last hours, and you know, leave
Well-
leave this world.
So you're saying he's not even allowed to have people with him?
Well, I'm just saying.
No, I'm just asking. I don't
But
know.
That's the scenario that we're
It's
about.
this, because if he does, and he does something like that, are
Oh,
those
you get
people
blamed,
But they'd
going
be
to be
subject to manslaughter.
Exactly.
And, well,
Exactly.
you know, I think one thing that might
That's his concern.
is for someone to, you know, to find a condition that is likely to kill him within 6 months. You know, so that whether everyone would agree that he had that condition or not might be different. But that might be the way to play that card.
Two willing doctors.
To say you've
Why
got,
wouldn't you videotape him saying now what his intentions are to guard against that?
How would that work?
I don't know. This is all pretty uncharted territory. It's not an area I've ever practiced in or know anything about really, other than
That's a good,
Trying to
you
see
know,
why
I mean, I don't know, but that's something to
well, but that could
consider.
cut the other way. I mean, just
Yeah.
basic, you know, trial lawyer thinking is that, you know, anytime you think you have a good fact, you might actually have a really bad fact. So that might
Knew ahead of time he was gonna kill himself.
yes,
But I mean,
exactly.
but-
There you go. I've infected you.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, right now, he's enough here with
You're
us
complicit
still.
in his premeditation.
Yeah, exactly.
He knows how to operate you know,
PCR.
yeah,
No.
so he could tape himself
Mhm.
on his own in, you know,
Not tell you.
that, I mean, well, he would tell us, but I mean, he could do it without anybody being present.
Well, and I don't know if that helps or hurts.
Yeah.
I really don't, because I mean the way that it might help is if, you know, and he says, you know, this is my last will. It's my intention to die within 6 months, and you know, and
But
I'm
giving
hoping
the
that you won't
reason.
prosecute Anne for that because she's going to help me.
So
Well.
if you just did a video, would that considered a will, or do you have to have it legal?
Well,
With
no, wills you have their own format.
I'm saying, so you couldn't do it on a video. That's what I'm asking.
Probably not. I don't think you can do video wills.
Really?
No, you know, the other.
It just seems pretty
the,
easy if you can see yourself talking. I mean,
Yeah.
the rules of wills are, you know, are statutory. I mean, they got to be signed, they got to be witnessed,
Oh.
you know, things like that. And it's a really trippy field. I mean, because there's in the common. I mean, I'll give you what the parameters are. I won't go into too long on this, but the parameters are that you want to follow through with testator intent, but you also, you know, have to follow formalities as much as possible, and the reason you have formalities is to avoid fraud. So
Right.
someone says, hey, see, I got this piece of paper, and it's signed by the testator. It says, you know, you should give all the stuff to me. Huh?
Yeah.
Really?
but when you
Duress.
say it has to be witnessed, isn't the camera videotaping you seeing the person talking? Isn't that a form of witness or no?
Yeah, but you see the gun pointing at the person at the same time, you know. So it's
Well, and you
I
can
didn't
even make the
video
case that he wasn't in his right mind when he made that tape in the first place.
yeah. So
Regardless of whether or not it's true or not, you
Right,
could
right,
at least
right,
make
right.
No one
the
observes.
A
case.
question.
Yeah.
yeah, so whenever I sign a will as a witness, and I do that for other attorneys frequently, you know, I always ask a couple of questions to the person, you know, so that there's a format, something called a self-proving will, that for signatures in a certain form with a certain statement, because, you know, 50 years later, I might be dead or I might not remember any of it. But even so, I go through a little colloquy with the person. Say, well, you know what this is. I'm signing this for you. Do you have any questions? You know, is Bob your attorney? Is there anything else you want to ask? I'm also a lawyer. Is there, you know, is there any duress or anything here? And you know, just so that if it ever comes up, I could say that, you know, that in my legal opinion as well, this was completely valid. You know, just to help out.
I have a question. What he brought up too about being sane. Is it always a priority that everyone in every case is considered sane until proven not, or
No,
should you
well,
always assume they're not sane until proven? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Testamentary intent is about the lowest form of ability. You know, so in other words, you don't have to be able to testify at trial. You know, you don't have to be competent for the purposes of trial. It's a very low bar to administer.
so it doesn't matter if you were really insane or
Right,
insane.
and I would think the same thing would apply to an Alzheimer's patient. You know, that he's stated this intent for all along, and he's consistently stated this, and for you to jump in when he gets to the point where he's really iffy, you know, the court just wouldn't stand for that unless, you know, again, they're just hostile to taking your own life, and that's the problem you have to deal with the court, is that they're hostile to certain claims.
Like what?
Not guilty pleas. Guilty pleas, you know, that.
Oh, they're hostile to guilty pleas?
Well, yeah. Or out of
Defendant
court
who?
confessions. You know, it's like, you know, this person. So they ask for a lot of safeguards, like, you know, to prove that something is knowingly, intelligent, and voluntarily given. So,
Right.
so for example, when my client says, you know, I want to plead guilty, they have to go through this plea form. The court on its own has to establish that it's a knowing, intelligent, voluntary plea. They, you know, ask for input from both parties. You know, so I have a spiel that I go through too with clients. So,
Is there a way you could apply that to theist claims? That kind of a testing?
to theist claims?
Yeah. Like if someone says I believe in God, and you basically doing it like they're I'm just thinking about how because I think that it's good. Like I try to use psychology or philosophy because
Yeah.
I understand those. But I'm saying using law, I think that'd be an interesting way that it's like when there was
Yeah,
like what I'm saying, like
Sure. The same thinking that I would apply to
Yeah.
that is just, that for something to be introduced as evidence in any form, there has to be a foundation for it. So with any theistic claim, just 2 words: objection, foundation. What's the foundation for that?
Right.
So even if you do believe every word of the Bible is true, foundation. You got this document that's on a piece of paper. You have no idea who wrote it, no idea when they wrote it, no idea what their intent was. And from that, you can't prove shit. You can't know shit. It can mean anything. So it's just, what is the foundation?
Have you said that to people?
There's just no foundation for this.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's actually, we were talking about the guy trying to sue the devil. There's actually a stand-up comedian that actually did bring a trial to sue God.
Yeah.
He was an Irish comedian or whatever, I think it was, in Ireland. And he actually went through the whole procedure, took it as far as he could, basically. I think he actually got through court.
Well, I mean, you go to court and he got laughed out,
Yeah, I
with
forget
a
what
personal
happened, but it was
jurisdiction claim.
Yeah, there was this movie, I think a Bollywood hit, I think called OMG or something. Where what happens is this guy's business gets hit by an earthquake, and the insurance companies won't cover it because it's an
Act of God. Yeah. So he joins God in the claim.
No,
That's good.
so he sues God based on that, and then they have these religious figures.
Oh my. So they're taking a colloquial
To
term
defend.
and then putting it into.
Yeah.
That's not what is
And
actually.
then he
meant,
ends up
but-
meeting Krishna,
Well,
and Krishna's supportive. And so, yeah, I think you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
All
Prove the
this
fact that I'm destructive.
all these religious people have taken religion the wrong way.
Right. Well, and so that's one of the things about the insurance claims. It's like, okay, so this, your insured is 120 years old, and you're claiming you're not going to pay because he committed suicide. How long did you think he was going to live? Minus 20 years, right? I mean, you've been playing with holding on to his money for 20 years. So, and that's something where a court, I think, would be kind of hostile to. It's like, seriously?
Well, it's the foundation piece when it concerns the Bible, which is amusing term. But, it's the foundation piece that is why I generally don't get into conversations about it. Because it's just going, a lot of people spend a lot of time going through the textual history and what does this verse come from? Where does this go from? And I'm just like, you're already giving them more weight than it deserves. I mean, the Bible is simply a generic term. There is no such thing as a singular entity that is this. I mean, having come out of the religious background, having come out of the very conservative-minded King James only camp. I mean, you've got a whole camp there that says, no, the only legitimate, Bible is the King James Old English, 1611, version in English.
Yeah,
That's
so in
awesome.
1610, none of this was true.
Exactly. So, and it's historical hooey, but the point is still valid. They took it as being, look, there's a legitimate problem here. If you can't establish philosophically that you have a source that is perfect for your claimant, well, then you are open to the problem of going, well, how do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they make, I mean, I think their argument's ridiculous, but the pointing out of a problem is perfectly legitimate.
Right. And this is one place where I think that legal thinking is very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that you think you have a document that proves something, you don't have anything. You have a piece of
You
paper.
have a piece of paper.
And what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you establish what the foundation for it is.
Yep.
Who wrote it? Who said it?
Mm-hmm.
Why you believe it? Is it a business record?
Yep.
What level of suspicion do you have about it?
Well, and that's where a lot of people will get into. I think who just came out with a new book on history or the existence of Christ.
The Carrier?
Richard
yeah,
Carrier.
No, that's a great
and
book.
he's all power to him. I think the whole subject is ridiculous and dry, but he has a wealth of information on it that is impressive. At the same time, I kind of look at it and go, okay, well, let's just bring this back to somebody makes a claim that, well, I'm basing it on the Bible. Great. Which one? Mm-hmm. Then they say, well,
I think
this
why
one
is a better question.
yeah.
Right?
Why?
I base mine on Marvel comics. I mean, they're more coherent. They're more recent.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but
Better
I think
plot
there is a value in it because I actually became an atheist not because I ever read an atheist book, but because I took a college class and they told me to study the Bible, and then I became atheist.
Well,
And I had
that
already
was
read the Bible twice myself,
Absolutely.
but I had never learned all the textual stuff and how the Bible was arranged and the history and
The Council of Nicaea, things like that.
Yeah. Well, and that was
even
part
the
of it.
Babylonian is part of the the Epic of Gilgamesh and just all these different stuff. It's like whoa.
Well, and there is a
Reach for
validity
ball.
to it. I'm not denying it at all the fact that it's a fascinating subject for it. And similarly, I came to it. Yes, there was a particular book that kind of like the proverbial straw, but it was in the midst of Bible college. It was the years of studying theology, it was the years of studying religious history, the years of studying the evolution of theological claims, the fact that these things have changed, and going, okay, wait a minute. How does this at all make any? How does this support? It's just like you cannot get rid of the absurdity of humanity.
Right.
From
You're
this.
sitting there in Bible college and your brain goes off.
Yeah, I'm going, this doesn't work. And so there is a lot of
But the fact that there's a Bible colleges is proof that you're saying that it doesn't matter also because there's actually Bible colleges.
There is Bible college. I mean, there are people
barber
who
colleges too.
who have vast careers built on
Yes.
this. And there's part of that where it's like, yes, absolutely, there is room for that kind of criticism. There is room for that kind of debate. Absolutely. I think generally speaking, the most people, my general interest is primarily about the widest population and the widest amount of being able to just go, what's that one, the one standard of deviation further on doubt. If I can get somebody to go from, you can use Dawkins' thing, the 1 to 7, whatever. It's like if somebody's at a 3, if I can get them at 3.5, fantastic. What I find with a lot of the research in biblical texts and all that is that the attempt is made to go from 3 to 7. And I'm just going, let's hold back a bit and go, what is your goal? If the goal is the academic achievement of doing that, hey, all power to you. If the goal is to utilize that to get people from a 3 to a 7, how helpful is that going to be? In how effective is that going to be? You might be able to find.
Well, but see, I think you're presenting it in a way that I don't agree with. Because that's like saying when we trade teams for sports, that we only train them to finish the season as not the least failure. What we do though is actually train them to try to be the winners. So I think that yes, I agree. Some people will not be winners, but we don't aim for just the lowest common denominator. I understand what you're saying that you can present information. I don't think there's one way to atheism. I don't think there's one way to doubt in general. But I do think I know my book definitely tries to make everyone 7, although I use about 15 different approaches. Because I know that not one approach will work, and I agree with you. I would feel success if I make you a 3.5.
Well, and I think that just has to do with what it is. It's being very, very conscious of what your goal is. If you engage in a conversation and your goal is only to get to the point of utter, disbelief, well, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Right.
99.9% of the
And
time.
people may reject you out of hand.
And they may, Whereas simply coming up, if we're going to look at social change, I'd rather have 10,000 people start utilizing a bit more of a rationalist, empirical, method in just 1 or 2 more areas in their life than simply to have 5 people be in utter agreement about a holistic, rational, viewpoint. Doesn't mean you can't go to that. But the 5 people are not going to be as helpful
What you're
as.
trying to say is you need to meet them where they are?
part of it, but it's also a
And if
determination.
they're birthers, you can only get so far.
yeah.
You can't get anywhere.
You can't. No, there are some things that you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they're carrying signs that say, get the government out of my Social Security.
Right, right.
I mean, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And so, but see, I think that's where we are for the
Morans.
most part. The what?
Morans. You ever see that sign?
Uh-uh.
The guy has a thing that's saying, it was a classic sign for a long time. It's got like a mullet and stuff, and he's got a real sign from one of the Tea Party things, and he's like, something like, keep the government off my back, Morans. Instead of morons.
Have you ever seen there was a video that someone did where they went to the Deep South and they recorded a few people, and this one guy, he's living on Social Security or SSI, and he says he's against any government handouts. It's like,
Well, you look at the polls, and the vast majority of people do not know that Social Security is a government
Right.
program. You're going, where do you think this came from? The fairies?
So I think I have an explanation for that. I've been thinking about that. So what it is we have there's a big part of us that that wants to punish freeloaders. And we can't help it. I mean, so I mean it's baked in.
Oh, yeah.
So they see someone who they think is a freeloader, and they want to stop it. The fact that is they, I have seen the enemy and it is us, they haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, and if you have an ideological structure that says, this is wrong, then you throw in the psychology.
Well, I think there is
notions
just
of
the psychology.
proximity effect. If I can recall it quickly, therefore it must be prevalent. No, it could be just that you happen to have heard the story most recently.
Yeah,
The mere ability to recall something immediately doesn't mean.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's System 1 and System 2, right? So Daniel
Kahneman's work.
Yeah, and so that.
which is really should be required reading for.
Yeah, so it's all System 1 stuff.
Yeah.
but isn't the difference too the blue collar and white collar? If a blue collar person gets work paid when they're not hurting, or if a person white collar never has to pay taxes, somehow the person with the blue collar is outrageous, and the white collars they've earned that status somehow.
Well, and that's where whenever
that's
I get into
System 1 and
conversations.
System 2 again. So
Similar. And that's why in conversations on social policy, I always try changing the wording and immediately start using, so you're for corporate welfare, but not this one. Like, wait.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. Yeah.
What?
Right,
Well,
or Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
So just go
I
through what
never
the elements
refer
of
to it as
Obamacare. Right,
It's the
because
Affordable Care
Obamacare
Act. I refuse to go down.
but you can't, that you go anywhere. And so here are the 12 things of so-called Obamacare.
Right.
Which one of these do you disagree
Yes.
with?
Yes.
Should insurance companies be able to disallow you, if you've been too sick, or kick you off because you have a pre-existing condition, and you go through all these. Well, those seem like great things.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, and in fact,
congratulations, welcome
notice
to the ACA.
when they do ask about the specifics, people are like overwhelmingly, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then they throw in, but do you support, Obamacare? Oh, hell no.
Exactly.
That's socialism.
Well, and even the thing that the Republicans claim to hate, this is forcing you into this
I mean,
program.
their own idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a Heritage Foundation
Yep.
proposal suggested by Newt Gingrich.
Exactly.
The red, Newt Gingrich, the red.
It's the irony of every Democratic idea is a Republican idea that they no longer like.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's
I need to go.
that whole thing about like when they ask people what do they think, what do they agree with, there's all kinds of liberal ideas, and then when they actually vote for them, it's not.
Right, and I think the reason for that is because they fall back to that hating freeloaders idea, and everyone's a freeloader but me.
Yeah.
So and
Or
therefore
I'll be rich one day is the other one.
The what?
I'll be rich one day.
Yeah.
Temporary what's the saying? Temporary disadvantaged wealthy person or something like that. Like everyone is a temporary disadvantaged wealthy person.
Just like I think it's funny when they say they want the government out of everything, except when they want to push their religion and laws on everybody.
Right, and
So it's like, I thought
abortion
you-
regulations and
Yeah.
and marriage rules and
You're like, I thought you don't want government in anything.
Right.
Well, yeah, but what stuff I care about?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's
But it's amazing how, when they do the surveys how liberal the country shows up and then what they vote for. It's like these have nothing to do with each other whatsoever, do they?
well, I wonder if that isn't a process of aging too. So that the one thing that I found reassuring after the first McCain defeat was, you go and say, well, so who supported McCain? If you were over 65, that McCain would have won throughout in the country 80 to 20. He would have just crushed them.
Yep.
But then if you look at under 27, that about the same proportion split for Obama. So that what I would do to cheer myself up was go and read the obituaries. So then I would count the number of people over 65, or 65, 85, wow, I did a long time. And then people under 25, 1. Oh, there's a motorcycle accident, 2. And then, okay, so what's the proportion of voters next year?
Right.
There you go.
But do they change? Right? Do people become that older generation?
Well, but I think what's going to happen is that they're going to recognize the things that they voted for. It's like, well, I didn't get kicked off of my parents' insurance, and they're gonna expect that,
Right.
And
That's what they think about social
right.
programs.
And so the new Republicans, are the ones that are mad because the website worked badly for signing people up for Obamacare. It's like, well, what Republican would have had put the website there at all?
It's like Futurama, The future will be like, can you marry your robot? There'll be a new level of things they're concerned about.
Yeah,
They'll be
yeah.
conservative
Oh,
about.
yeah.
It'll just move forward. Hopefully.
Well, and interestingly, my brush with history, I took a class from William Rehnquist. He would come down every year and teach at the University of Arizona. He teach a course in February, of course, right, in Arizona on the history of the Supreme Court. Very careful not to touch anything current. And by the way, just a side note that I cannot find a single decision that he wrote that I agree with. Not one. But he is the most charming individual I have ever met. I'll just eat out of his hand. But so I asked him. Yeah. I don't either. But so I asked him, why is it that presidents are so bad at judicial handicapping? And by the way, he actually stole my term. The next day he was using it. The dean came up and tapped me on my shoulders. He stole your term. He's using it. But I asked him that. He said, well, and he thought for a minute. He said, that what happens is that somebody goes into that office at age 45, at the or maybe even 40, and they have power on the court maybe 25 or 30 years later. So they're doddering, they're 80 years old, they're completely out of touch with everybody else, and the issues are completely different. No one could have vetted them on that because they couldn't have anticipated what it was. So the stuff that they're ruling on, you have no idea how they're going to get there. I mean, you just could not predict it. And in terms of getting a job, you cannot plan to get a job on the Supreme Court. If you want to be president, there are things you can do that would make it more likely. For getting to the Supreme Court, not really. What?
Taft?
Well, Taft was president, and he's the only one who
And then became
and there was a
Supreme
point-
Court justice. And he actually wanted to become a Supreme Court justice.
Right. Well, and
didn't like being president.
right, but there's no way that you can really plan for a career on the Supreme Court. That there's just you just can't do anything to make it more likely that you will get that job. A little bit.
Maybe
What?
going to law school.
Well, so that puts you in a career. No, I mean, that's only recently. So Robert Jackson didn't go to law school. Now he's the last one who didn't. But
Okay.
who knows?
And then
Maybe somebody will appoint someone who can go to law school.
stay out of academia. That's probably fairly good advice.
Well, it is now, but but who knows in 10 years whether it'll be. When
Well-
Chief Justice Lawrence tried or something, And I mean, it used to be a good idea.
You'll probably publish something someone will take exception to.
Yeah.
I think anything that's published is going to be, someone's going to take exception to it.
Right. So it'd be like Thomas and say nothing ever.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if you did
But
that.
at a certain point, people would say, wait a minute, he's never said anything ever. I'm not going to vote for that.
And then again,
my
like
jurors.
20 to 30 years from now, who knows if we'll have a Supreme Court.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know.
50 years from
My sense that the radical ideas, I think we should select people for public office the same way that we select jurors, by random, by lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like, because really, you say, well, you might get somebody crazy. George Bush was elected twice. What are you afraid of?
There's a system in place.
Remove accountability.
Yeah, I agree about close to that, close to my opinion about what government should be. Government should be more people with less power, and I don't think there should be any leaders. There should be no one of it. For me personally, no governors, no mayors,
Well-
no presidents. Everything should be by democracy, direct democracy of the mass amount of people. In other words, like for me personally, like if the Congress is 300 people, it should be 3,000. More people is better in the long run. More representation, not fewer people where it's all pigeonholed.
Sure. So you would like to increase the amount of gridlock by a factor of 10.
But I mean, in general,
but you look at these bodies and they're completely dysfunctional. They can't open a park.
right.
And
So I'm just saying that.
But I think they were set up to, for there to be a substantial amount of gridlock. You'd like to increase the amount of gridlock. I think if the amount of gridlock went up, it wouldn't be too early to start shooting. As my friend John Luton says, it's too late to vote. It's too early to start shooting.
But that opinion would be that we can't ever vote a president. We can never make opinions, and I don't agree with that's a true statement. We can have democracy. So either you're saying you don't believe in democracy at all, or you believe that democracy always ends up in a stalemate. And I don't think that that's a true statement. I mean, I hear that you agree with that or believe that, but I do not believe that democracy is a failed, opinion. I think that democracy is the only hopeful opinion, because to me, it's the only approach that you can get, just like a jury itself. Why not just have a judge? Juries are gridlock. Juries are a negative thing, and yet you pose that as the solution, and I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the democracy, to me, is the solution.
Well, I agree with it in the form of juries. I spend my career, shaking my head at what they do.
Right, yeah. Well,
but-
democracy is not perfect.
Well, and what it does is it means that there's only that there is it's hard to act. I think that what we've set up with a system of executive government and a representative legislature and a judicial branch is genius. I mean that is a really good idea.
But in a sense, like you're asking about gridlock. So to me, it's how we allow it to be set up. See, if it's set up that if they don't come to like make a financial thing that's passable, then they don't get paid. I mean, if you said they would
get paid externally, they don't need to get paid.
Well, they shouldn't get paid externally at all. But so I'm just saying that if you set it up that would be just fraud. To me, they shouldn't get anything. Period. It's all fraud. They're being bribed. That's fraud. They more than a judge getting outside money. That's fraud to me. So anything a politician gets on the outside, to me, is fraud. If you go in there, it's a public service, and you should be a public servant, not a ruler
But then
or a leader.
you can essentially torture them to get their job done. Where no other job.
No, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it.
So they were withheld food and water until they made a decision.
You don't have to do it. No one's making you be in the public thing. If you choose to be there, I mean, I've donated my time for free. That is what not that they have to do for free, but that should be what it is, not a money-making scheme. It should be that you want to do a public good.
Yeah, and
See,
every
the
generation. Go ahead.
The corporate money in
Oh, it's
our
terrible.
system,
Yeah.
I mean, it is so blatant. It is, I mean, we, the people, do not
No,
have
but I guess what I'm
any
saying is
power.
if you can
It's the
withhold,
corporations
if you
that
can
have
withhold the
power.
money they need to survive, you have a certain kind of power over them that most jobs don't. Where you can say, you want to be a congressman? Well, until you make a decision, I'm going to starve you.
But
Because
see,
you can't get money from anywhere else to be the congressman. And
but as a truck driver, you can make big laws. So as a truck driver, I was a truck driver for almost 17 years, drove over the road. If you make a logbook violation, in other words, all a violation takes is that you either lie or you make a mistake. Even a mistake is still a violation. It can be anywhere from $50 to $2,000 for every single mistake, every clerical mistake. So I know a truck driver that made 10 mistakes. He basically lost 6 months of money for a few mistakes. May not even be intentional. I'm just saying the same thing with the political system.
accountable.
They should be accountable. If you can say a truck driver who's a blue collar is accountable to that level for clerical errors, I have no problem saying that a politician where other people's lives are under stake should not be held the same accountability.
Well, what would that be like? I mean, what would you suggest?
I mean, how would you measure, I guess?
Well, you're asking two separate questions. You're not asking the same question. So you're saying, how would I do what?
Well, what would that be like? What would that system look like?
Well, I said direct democracy. To me, you think it's this way. Do you know who runs the water system here in this town? Is there somebody who is...
And probably.
Is there someone who has the right to turn the water off by themselves? Nobody, okay? And in fact, if the water system goes down, they will rush... They'll work 24 hours. They will come on the weekends. They will do it. Do we pay them extra for that? No. Except for the work. No, but we pay them for the work. Overtime. But that's not like we don't give them credit. We don't give them awards. We don't. Hey, they just turn the power back on. They do their job because it is their job.
Yeah.
So to me, glorifying, oh, thank you for giving me rights. Oh, you passed and allowed us to marry. Oh, I feel so wonderful. No, you have been infringing on our rights for the fact that you try to say we couldn't get married. Mm-hmm. To me, you don't vote on human rights, period. No human right should be voted on. You don't get the right to do that. You don't get the right to infringe on other people. You do have the right, though, to protect the group, because it's a group, to me, of individuals. So all of us are not going to have, like you said, libertarian. We don't have 100% anything ever. Not if you live in the world. Because somehow you're affecting everything else around you. Even if you're out in the woods, you burn a campfire, it makes smoke in the air, could catch a forest fire, could pollute the water. So you're always constantly involved in this ecosystem of group. So the group has to have a say over some of what you do, because if it infringes on the group. You asked my opinion.
I think the problem is there's not enough people who think like us.
Well, true.
I mean, really, there's not enough people that really, think the big questions or think about what's going on. It's
Right.
like you go home, you watch Fox News.
Oh, God, I hope they don't watch that.
Well, a lot of people do.
I love
Yeah,
it.
some 40% or something of
Yeah, and it's
news
like-
watchers.
And they're the most trusted source for news.
No, they're not. They're the least.
No, but-
whether they objectively are, but I'm saying that if you...
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like, they're like 28% true.
Actually, yeah.
CNN is like, I think it's 60 something.
Well, but those numbers have recently changed, so that actually Fox is ahead of CNN,
Yeah.
according to
Because
No.
Bill
Yeah.
Riley.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, MSNBC still does all right.
I haven't
And NPR does
tested
better.
it, but I've seen anyone who did,
Tell you what.
like how accurate the various news sources are.
Well, there's a PolitiFact.
Yeah, PolitiFact's been known to be quite funky.
Yeah. But I've been saying it, so he said no one's done it.
well, and the problem is things are self-reaffirming, so that people who watch Fox News hang around with other people who watch Fox News.
Well, of course.
And are.
Yeah, but like PolitiFact got in trouble for basically trying to sensationalize things. Like everything became sort of. It's like, did something happen? They're like, well, sort of. He didn't say that. What did happen? Yes, it happened. But they'll say that was sort of true. Because it wasn't like, so they started playing all these games with sort of this and sort of that. And it was like, yeah, I saw a show on it where they're just blasting them for it. And it's like, we need another organization. This one is not working.
Well, and that's the problem in general. It's a kind of a general thing.
How do you make money and still be true?
Well, and
So the simplest thing I would say is the fact that we can put some trust into science is the same way our political system should be. And the reason why you trust science is not because one brave scientist says something, or two or three, it's because of consensus. And that goes back to me, back to democracy, back to the consensus of the ideas usually is going to have often a more chance to be a palatable idea than one person coming up with
But only
things.
if the consensus is like something based on principles, like the fact that you can test things and try them again.
well,
Like,
and things go wrong too.
religion is
So,
by consensus too, to some degree.
so Darwinism.
Well, I
has
don't think
been-
so. I
been
think it
used to-
establishes this is the truth, and then everyone else basically tries to prove it or disprove it. I mean,
But you make it sound like they're a bunch of hard-working boffins with no self-interest involved.
who, scientists? No, I didn't know. I don't agree with
Well,
that.
I mean, for any of
Scientists
it.
need Porsches too.
Well, if you ask me, like, do I believe that there's anything as a chance for a government that's 100%, perfect? Hell no. But I think that just like you said too, I don't think there's a chance of getting how much closer to true and how much farther away from it.
Well, and then there are, sure, but so we think of things that help incremental steps.
Yes.
And try to go in that direction, but there's no obvious. I can't think of anything.
Just like the reason you practice law, right? And you said you do defense, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you do it for the state.
Well,
Basically,
I'm
or
a public defender.
Public defender. That's
Yeah,
right.
but
So
actually,
I'm just saying-
but in interest of full disclosure, at this point, I am a county employee. So.
I wasn't trying to clarify exactly. My point was that is there a reason why you chose that over the other side? Right. Yeah.
Well, that I like the autonomy of handling my own cases. If you work in what I always thought it might be fun to be a prosecutor for a while. The problem is that you have to work in a prosecutor's office, and those offices tend to be just the height of bureaucracy. They're the only people in the system that have any discretion, and the offices systematically take it away from you. So that you would think that it's the product, and because our duties are not symmetrical.
So was there or was there not an ethical bearing to why you chose that over something else?
Well, there's a variety of reasons. I mean, mostly, just personal style. I prefer representing people. I have a lot of compassion for people, and I like the stance of the king wants to send some poor bastard to prison. It's my job to get him away.
See, so there's an ethical thing.
Well, I don't know if that's ethical. I mean,
I do
that's
think
a
it's that.
personal-
Because you said that you want to protect somebody that's being maligned. That's absolutely. If that's not ethics, then I need to hear from you what you think ethics is.
But to the credit of the people who want to be prosecutors, they say, that I like to represent, that there's an implicit victim in most crimes.
Right.
And, I defend the king's peace. Journey.
All right.
See you.
Bye.